Hello everybody, today we're going to be taking a look at recording and then playing back a player's actions through the form of a player ghost. Okay, so you can see here I've got my little dude in the context of a platformer, although pretty much any game context works. We use a platformer because that's what we usually use. And if I press, you'll notice this little green guy running around here, kind of imitating our player's movements, something I recorded earlier. If I press F2, this little record thing comes up, and I can like run around, do a little jump, run to this corner, and I'll just jump like 3 times there, for example, and press F2. Okay, and then if I restart the game, we'll find a new ghost has been created, and it will play back exactly that sequence of actions. And what I've now done is actually created that as a file. We stored that as a JSON file that we can play back whenever we want in pretty much any context. Okay, so you might want to record particular difficult sections or difficult concepts in your game to play them back as kind of like a tutorial for the player. Okay, there's a few different games that have done that kind of thing in the past. But you might also want to play back the player for a number of different reasons, such as like a speedrun ghost that you've recorded of the player, or a developer ghost for that matter, for things like racing games, or even for like super fancy mechanics like the shadows from Braid that sort of play back what the player did when they did a rewind or something like that. There's all kinds of different uses you can imagine for this kind of thing. Before we get started, I do want to give a huge shout out to Thomas. I cannot pronounce his Twitter handle, so I'm not going to even try, but I'm going to put it on screen for you, who has graciously allowed me to use his sprite pack for this particular tutorial. And the source code for this episode will be freely available to download, along with the sprites that are made freely available for you to use by Thomas. But if you want to make further use of this awesome template character, you should go and check out the full pack. There's a pack available with animations for this character, with a bunch of different types of weapon animations, rolling animations, crouching, ladder climbing, and all that kind of fun stuff. There is a pretty steep discount for that pack right now. It is on sale for, I think, about 10 days from when this video goes out to my Patreon supporters, and so probably about 3 days after it goes live on YouTube. So go check that out. It's a really great resource, really well put together. Each animation even has its name especially prepared for GameMaker, so you can just drag it straight into the IDE and it'll recognize and split up the frames automatically, which is super awesome. And honestly, these animations, not just as a great resource in and of themselves, but they act as a pretty good tutorial on each particular animation and how that sort of thing should and could look. Anyway, that's that plug over. I've not been paid to say any of that, by the way. He's just done cool work and has helped me out, and I like helping cool people out. So there you go. So the first thing we're going to do is create an object that records everything our player does in here. So I'm going to create a new object. I'm going to call it oRecorder. All right. It doesn't need a sprite or anything like that. It's going to be invisible. I'm going to add an event. I'm going to add the create event. And let's maximize that. Press F12. Make this nice and big so we can see what's going on. So in the create event, as usual, we're just going to declare some variables. So I'm going to say variables is the name of this event, and I'm going to call ghost record. I'm going to declare ghost record as false. Okay, and that's just going to be the variable that decides whether or not we're currently recording. Ghost record frames equals 0, and ghost record list equals ds list create. So this is going to be the number of frames we've currently recorded. We're literally going to record every single frame. Okay, and this here is going to be the list in which we store all the information about those frames, where the player is, what animation they're in, which direction they're facing, and anything else that's actually important for us to know. Okay, next up, because we've created a DS list, very important for us to also add the cleanup event. I'm just going to call it data structures, so that's what we're cleaning up. We've created a DS list, so we want to make sure if this object ever goes away, we deal with that DS list and get rid of it, so we don't create a memory leak. Hey, just for safety as well, we'll check to make sure that DS list actually exists before we destroy it. So if DX exists, ghost record list, comma, DS type list. Okay, so if there's a data structure and it's called that, and it is a DS list. Okay, and that, and then if that's true, DS list destroy, open bracket, ghost record list. Okay, simple as that. So that's the setup done for the recorder. Next thing I'm going to add is go to add open event here just by right clicking the code window, step, step event. Okay, let's add the step event. So what do we want the recorder to actually do? Well, first of all, we don't need a description for this one, I think. We're just going to have toggle record. So we're going to have two sections in here, one for toggling the recording on and off, and one for actually doing the recording. In fact, I could name them right now. Record each frame. So those are the two things that we're going to be doing in here. So to toggle recording, that's obviously going to depend on your game, but for this example, I'm just going to say we press F2, all right, just to record it. So if keyboard check press open bracket VK F2, okay, that's the F2 key. Then we're going to start recording. So ghost record, which is that boolean we just made, is going to equal the opposite of itself. So not ghost record. That's exclamation mark ghost record. So if it's true, it'll become false, and if it's false, it'll become true. Very, very handy way to invert a boolean, that. Next up, if we are already recording, then when we toggle it off, we want to save what we've recorded into a file, okay? This may seem like skipping ahead a bit, but it is important we get this done now. So stop recording and save. So if not ghost record, so after the toggle has happened, if not ghost record, so that means if it's false, and ds exists, ghost record list ds type list. Okay, so if we've just turned it off and the list of things for us to record still exists. So those of you who've seen my previous JSON saving and loading tutorial, this bit's going to look very familiar. What we're going to do is create a JSON file, and to do that we need to wrap our DS list into a DS map, okay? Because it just makes the saving loading process really easy if we wrap everything into a root DS map. Okay, so I'm going to type var underscore wrapper, and this is going to be our root map, ds underscore map underscore create, ds map add list, okay, to add the list to the map specifically for the purpose of creating a JSON. Underscore wrapper is the map we're adding to, and the list we're adding, the key in which we're adding this under is root, comma, and the list that we're adding is ghost record list. If I'm starting to lose you at this point because you're like not really super familiar with DS maps or JSON files and don't really know what I'm talking about with stuff, I really highly recommend going and watching my video on saving and loading with JSON. That explains working with these files in a simpler context of just saving and loading your game. And honestly, I'm mostly repeating the same lessons in this particular video just to show you how another way of applying this whole JSON saving and loading stuff, okay? So once we've added the map to a list, what we want to do is then encode this DS map, okay? So I'm going to type var underscore the lot, because it's just everything, JSON encode wrapper. So what does it mean to encode it? What that means is we're taking this DS map, which now contains our DS list, and wrapping it into the JSON format. So it'll just turn it into a really long text string, okay? So by this point in the code, by line 11, var the lot is just going to contain a super long text string that contains everything that we wanted to record. It contains this entire list wrapped within a DS map, okay? So now that we have that, we just need to save it as a file. So if file exists, recording.json, which will be in the app data folder for this particular game, file delete recording.json. Okay, so there's already one there, let's get rid of it. Var underscore record file equals file underscore text underscore open underscore write recording.json. So then that creates the JSON if it doesn't already exist, which we know it doesn't exist now because we checked if it did and deleted it. So that'll create a new file called recording.json. Then file underscore text underscore write underscore string record file comma the lot. Okay, so we need that underscore in there as well. Okay, so then that writes all of this that huge long string that we're going to have in here from the JSON encode into record file, okay? Then all we need to do is simply close the file again. So file, text, close, record, file. So we're done with it. And then we can get rid of the wrapper. And this is what's really useful as well. dsmap destroy underscore wrapper. And the really handy thing with this is that when you have a data structure created in this way, where you've got a dsmap that's storing lists within it, and then those lists maybe contain maps and so on, designed specifically for JSON handling. If you destroy the root map, it'll destroy everything else in a cascading effect, okay, and it'll free up all of that memory, so you don't have to worry about memory leaks and so on, and going in and cleaning up the list you've just created and cleaning up the contents of the list if each list contains a map and so on and so forth, because that would be a lot of work. So it does all of that for you. It's super, super useful. Okay, so that's our toggle for turning on and off the recording. Now we need to make it so when recording is on, we're actually recording anything, right? So let's come down to here where we've written record each frame. I'm going to type if ghost record, so if our recording is on, and instance exists O player. So, you know, there's an object to actually record, right? or whatever you want to record. So if ds exists, not ds exists, that is, ghost record list, ds type list. Okay, so if this data structure doesn't exist because maybe we destroyed it when we stopped recording a previous one, we need to create it. And I'm going to set ghost record frames to 1 and ghost record list to equal ds list create. Next up, just assuming all this is true, and then we know there's a list waiting for us to record into, record this frame. I guess that's kind of a similar comment, but whatever. var underscore frame to record equals ds map create. Okay, so we're going to store each frame as a ds map. So with O player. Let's get the info that we want to save. So underscore frame to record, and I'm just going to use the shorthand accesses to enter stuff into this array, not array, ds map. So if you don't know that, what you can do is from a ds maps work by pairing a piece of information or a variable, data, etc. with a key. That key being a string name of something. So I could have a value called potions, and the entry could be 2, etc. Okay, so a shorthand way of using ds maps is to open a square bracket once you've typed the name of the map, and then a question mark symbol, and then the name of the key that you want to modify or add to the ds map. In this case, the x is going to be the name of the string, and it's going to store the x position of our player, and then close the square bracket, and you can just set that to equal something. And then that will set that key of this ds map to equal whatever you put here, okay? Useful shorthand, rather than having to use like ds map set and then type in everything like that with that function, okay? You can just do it like this. So frame to record x is going to be the x position of our player. Remember, we're within our O player, so we're getting variables from the player object. Frame to record question mark y is going to equal y, and then I'm just going to paste in the rest of these real quick, okay, because they're all the same. You don't need to see me type that out like 5 times in a row. But what we're storing is a key called xScale, which is storing our image xScale, a key called sprite, which is storing our sprite index, and image, which is storing our image index, okay, and we're going to store that about every single frame. You might be wondering at this point as well, we'll talk a bit more about this in a bit, whether or not this is going to be super expensive. Like, I'm recording every single frame, I'm storing all this information about every single frame. Isn't that just going to be to like a really huge file and stuff? And you're going to be surprised. It actually takes a very tiny amount of room. We forget how big kilobytes actually are. So yeah, so that's the stuff we're going to store. Once we've done that, we're going to add this map to our ds list, okay? First of all, we do that just by doing ds list add ghost record list underscore frame to record, and then we do ds list mark as map ghost record list ds list size ghost record list -1, close bracket again, semicolon. So that finds the list we just added to the map in the list and marks it as a map for the sake of doing JSON. Don't ask me why you have to do this when adding a map to a list, whereas when you add a list to a map, you simply do ds map add list. I don't know why that's like one nice function for doing it there, and with this you have to add it first and then mark it. Don't ask me. Don't know, but you do. That's how you have to do it. Okay, and then once we've done that, I'm going to type ghost record frames ++. Okay, because then we're going to record the next frame. Luckily, because we're adding these to the DS list, we're going to add them in order of frames. Okay, so that's not going to be a problem for us. But just to track how many frames we have recorded, I'm going to keep increasing this value by 1 each time. All right, and that's it. That's going to so that lets us toggle the record up here and also save the file out and also perform the recording every single step. Okay, so I'm just going to add the draw GUI event real quickly just so we can try this out. And I'm just going to paste in this chunk of code. You can pause the video if you want to add this in yourself. It's kind of unnecessary. It's just to put a little circle in the corner to show us when we're recording, just so it's super clear. Then I'm going to follow the step that I always forget, come to the room itself and actually put a copy of ORecorder into the game. Okay, and then I'm going to run the game just so we can do a little quick test record. Obviously there's nothing to play back our recording yet, but just to do a little test record just so that we know later on that what it's playing back is what we recorded. So I'll just go up here because I started down here. I'm going to press F2, you see that comes up in the corner. And I'll do some jumping around up there, down here, and I'll like jump twice in this corner just so we can see that clear. Press F2 again, and then that's gone. So that's recorded now. In fact, if I pop over to my user Sean.js app data local ghost blank, just happens to be the name of the project, the folder, you can see recording.json has been created. And you see it's 44 kilobytes. That's absolutely, I mean, obviously it was a really short recording, but even with a much larger one, like you could go on for quite some time recording stuff and possibly only have it be like a megabyte or whatever, which is I think is really good, really really manageable. So don't worry too much about recording every frame being super expensive. It does get more expensive as you store more things. We're only storing up to like 4 different possible sprites, position, and like our X scale. You might have lots more stuff to store about the player you're recording, but I think it scales pretty well. I think you can get away with quite a lot and have this still be a very manageable size. It is a JSON file, but if I just open it with just like a text editor or something, just in Sublime Text over here, you can see if you just it'll look the same in Notepad or whatever. You can see it's just stored as a really long string. Just a ton of DS maps in a list, in a comma-separated list of every single frame. So it's got your sprite, your X scale, your X, and all that good stuff. Okay, so we've got our recording. We're able to record, and if we were to make new recordings, it would overwrite that recording and so on, and it creates the file. How do we then read that file back and play back the recording in our game? Well, I'm going to make a new object for this, and this is going to be OGhost. So I'm going to create object OGhost. I'm going to set the sprite to match the. It actually doesn't really matter now that I think about it because it's going to get the sprites entirely from the file. But just for reference, just makes it easier to look at in the objects list, I guess. I'm going to make it match the idle sprite. Next up, I'm going to start with the create event as per usual. Let's maximize that. Press F12, give it some space. And the create event is going to be all about loading the ghost data. Okay. And the setup for this is as follows. I'm going to set frame to equal 0 because that's going to be the first frame we want to play is frame 0, right? Image underscore blend is going to equal C teal. We're just going to have like a bluey green blend on the sprite just so that we can tell the ghost apart from the actual player. And then we're going to get the name of our file, which is ghost file name equals recording .json, semicolon. Then we want to load the actual data from that file. So I'm going to load data. If file underscore exists, ghost file name, I think you can guess what that does. So if the file exists, ghost file equals file underscore text underscore open underscore read, open bracket, ghost file name. This is opening the file just as before, but this time for reading information rather than writing information. Ghost data root is going to equal JSON underscore decode this time, open bracket, file text read string, open bracket, ghost file, close bracket, semicolon. Okay, so that's going to take that, well, this function here gets, first of all, that huge long string from our file, and just returns it as a string. But it's returning that string into JSON decode, so that means JSON decode is going to take that string and turn it back into a DS map that contains a DS list of those DS maps of each individual frame. Okay, then that's obviously wrapped inside that wrapper that we use, that original DS map. We want to get the DS list that's in that map. So I'm going to type ghost data equals ghost data root, and then again just using our shorthand for dealing with a DS map, question mark root, because that's where we stored it in the first place. Next up, now that we have the list, let's work out how many frames there are just by counting the number of entries in the list. So ghost frames equals ds underscore list underscore size, ghost data, semicolon, and ghost file equals file text close, open bracket, ghost file, close bracket, semicolon. Okay, because that's we've got the list of frames, we've got the number of frames, we don't need anything else from this file, so close the file. If that file doesn't exist at all to create this ghost at all, then this ghost isn't going to really be able to do anything useful, so let's just else instance destroy. Yeah, okay. Alright, so we have all the data now it's just a matter of actually playing that data back. Okay, so I'm going to right click, go to add open event, add the regular step event, and in here this is where we're actually going to play back the recording. Okay, so if frame is less than ghost frame, so if we've still got frames left to render, right? If frame equals 0, image alpha equals 1. That's going to be important because we're going to do like a little fade out thing towards the end and then just play it again infinitely. You might want to handle it differently, but I'll leave that to you. So I'm going to set that up just to help us later when we fade our alpha out. Frame data equals ghost data, and this time we're using shorthand for a DS list rather than a DS map. So with DS maps you use question mark, and with a DS list you use this little vertical line symbol. For me it's pressing shift and backslash gets you this symbol. If you can't find that on your keyboard, you can also just use DS list find value, and then type the name of the DS list, which is ghost data, and the position, which is going to be frame. Okay, so that will work just the same. Well, obviously frame data, you want to do that. Frame data equals that, so that will work. But if you want to use the shorthand, you can just write the name of the DS list, which is ghost data, this little symbol here after a square bracket, and frame. Okay. So those two lines do exactly the same thing there. Okay, so it's just another way of writing it. It's just a shorthand version of this. I'm just going to leave the shorthand version in because, shorter. Okay, so we've got the data out. So that's now what's in here is a particular DS map representing one particular frame that we've recorded. So now we can access that DS map and get back our X position, our Y position, our X scale, our sprite, and our image. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. X equals frame data, square bracket, question mark, X. Okay, and that's going to get our X back out. Then the exact same for Y. Square bracket, question mark, Y, square bracket, semicolon, and image X scale equals frame data, question mark X scale, and the rest, okay? So yeah, also our sprite index as from sprite and our image index from image, okay? And that gets back everything we need and plunks it all straight into those values, okay? Once we've got that, all we need to do is increment our frame so that the next time around we get the next frame. So frame plus plus, okay? Very quick way just to increment a value. You can obviously also do frame equal frame plus 1, yada yada, does the exact same thing. Okay, so it's just going to add 1, and then we're going to keep cycling it. Okay, so that's really all there is to it in terms of actually playing back the recording. So what do we do if our frame is not less than a number of ghost frames? So we've run out of frames to play back. So we can else this and say image alpha equals max image alpha minus 0.00250, so we just have a really slow like fade out over time. If image alpha equals 0, set frame to be 0, and then that will just mean we go back through the data and play it back again, okay? You can obviously do whatever you want. Last thing, of course, is to make sure that when we're done with this object by whatever means, we clean up the information that we've got. So in your cleanup step, what you're going to want to make sure you do is ds map destroy ghost data root. Okay, that's quite important. So ghost data root, remember, is what you decoded the JSON into. Okay, so what's important to recognize is this variable doesn't actually contain all of that information, that whole thing. It just contains a pointer to where that now is in memory, okay? And the same goes for the ghost data here and the DS list, and also each individual frame, which we've not even put in a particular value, although when we get them here, like our frame data, for example, when we get a particular map out, that's not actually getting all of that information and sticking it in that variable. It's just getting a pointer to where it lives in memory, so it'll just be like a number or something. So those variables themselves don't need cleaning up in that regard because they don't contain like all of that data. We just need to destroy the original structure in memory by telling dsmap destroy where it lives. It lives at whatever that points to, right? And then when it destroys the root one, it has a cascading effect and it'll destroy and clean up all the other ones. Very, very useful. Okay, so final step, come to the room, go to resources, and drop oghost somewhere in the room. Doesn't even matter because it's going to take the exact position from our recording. So we should now see when we run the game, we have a little ghost up here where we recorded, does our jump up here, it'll come down here and jump like twice in this corner over here. There we go, and that's what we recorded. And I can even now, and he'll fade out really, really slowly, and he'll repeat the process again. Over there, you can see spawns does the exact same thing. But I can also write over that recording and just press F2, and you can see it's recording again. I'll just do a little jump up here, do a big jump over there, stop recording. And now, it won't get it right away because obviously Ghost only gets that recording when it's created. So it's obviously not going to replace that right away. But if I were to close the game now, run it again, we'll see our new recording. There I am, doing that. He runs up there, does this thing. Cool. So there you have it, Ghost recordings. Thank you once again to Thomas for helping out with these sprites and making them available. Feel free and encouraged to check those out. As I said, there's a free pack you can get using just the sprites I've used here, including some cool like background sprites and stuff he's done, like some walls and ladders and things like that you can climb up. So go check out that free pack. You can obviously also get the sprites just from downloading the source code for this tutorial. But also go check out the full pack he's done because there's loads of really cool animations in this style here and they're really, really good. Thanks guys, hope you enjoyed this one and I'll see you later. A huge thank you to my Patreon supporters for selecting this topic and for funding this video. A huge shout out in particular and in no particular order to Andrew Gilbert, Arthur Kyle Vanderlei, Bowser the Dog, Bertie T, Daka Dondigo, Dan, Eric Matthew Hibbs, James Grumley, Jason McMillan, Kimo Savalampi, Malcolm, Mark Lintz, Matt Coate, Michael Ward, Mike KB, Owen Morgan, Patrick Guffey, Penguin Muffins, Robert Churches, Rovan Darlan, Run, Stephen Hagen, Tobias Scholten, Turtle Time, Zephyr Flame, and Zinan May. Thank you all so much, I hope you enjoyed this one, I'll catch you guys next time.